Okay, we are now in the process of putting everything together. I just pulled these bearings out of the freezer. They've been in there for a couple of days now, actually. And I still have them in like a bucket of ice. Just helps shrink them down a wee bit. Sometimes you can actually get lucky and have bearings go in nice and easy that way. Now, if you really want to make it easy, you would also bake the cases. But I don't have a stove that's not the kitchen stove, so I will not be doing that. But what I will be doing is just putting them in out here. So they're froze, should stay that way nicely for a little while, but I want to get these on first. So anyone that's going like inside a case, you want to freeze. It can make things easier. The ones that are like the ones that I just pressed off of the Pinion or the ring gear carrier assembly there, you don't want to freeze those because they, are actually going over top of something, right? So if you wanted to, what you would freeze is the pinion itself and then heat up the bearing. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to press them on regular, whatever. So seems to be a wee bit of crud down in there and I can't seem to get it out. A little something got in there. Alright, that's better. Alright, so let's drop this in and see if the freezing helped. This is going to be a hard one to get to because of such a small space to work with. Now, it did not just fall in. I wasn't really expecting it to. Would have been awesome if it did, but it didn't. So, I need to find, I'm thinking, a socket and then an extension that fits that perfect. So the 16 on the is pushing on the outer race, which is nice. Alright, and then I just got an extension. I'm just going to be tapping lightly on that outer extension. I got to get this in the vise, and so that we can just hammer down on it nice and lightly and easily. Just enough to hold it in place. Just like that. Alright, now we can position this bearing in here as best we can. It would be nicer if we had something that would go down the center of that bearing to help keep it straight for us, but I don't. So we are just going to have to be gentle and careful how we do this. So go nice and slow. Slow is good. Helps keep you putting it in straighter. Fast is no good. If you're not getting it in straight, then you're going to cause problems. So you definitely want to work on getting it in there straight. These blind hole bearings, they could be some of the harder ones to do because you can't obviously see as well to see if you're bottomed out properly. That groove is there. Okay, I think we're bottomed out. Let's see if we can get that clip in, and if it'll seat in properly, then we should be confident that we're bottomed out. Just grab my clip pliers here. Grab that clip. There it is. It's down, it's in. I always like to, you can tell when they go in, they kind of snap. Like if you don't drop it right in the groove, and then you just kind of push it down with either the end of your pliers or a screwdriver or whatever. It'll snap into place. And that's what I did. But always afterwards, I still like to, I take a little flathead screwdriver, and I just kind of put it on the edge all the way around, and I just give it light taps, make sure it's seated in. And then I'll also take my clip pliers again, and I won't pinch it a lot, just a wee bit, and just spin it around and just make sure that it looks like it's in place all the way around, and then you're good to go. So that's what I did. So that is bearing number 1 replaced. So that's that one for that part of the case. Now we have the bearing for right in here. See if you can see on my bench here proper. Bend that down. Alright, so we got the one that goes in here that we can put in now as well, and that was in the freezer. Man, that's still cold. That actually cooled down the aluminum, so that's awesome. Alright, so let's find that bearing. That should be this one right here. Looks to be correct. Better be correct. If I can get it open. Okay. Okay, so this bearing. Now, I did it for this one. This needle bearing was universal, it looked like. Both inside, both sides look the same. Same with this bearing, you know. So what I usually do is I'll put the value for the bearings, like this is a 6032 bearing. I'll put that, I'll put the bearing in such a way that it is legible after it's installed. So instead of putting it in this way and having that number up against the case half, I will put it in this way so it's legible from the outside. Now, I wanted to use the press to do this, but that is really an odd shaped piece of material to work with in a press. So, look at that. I can actually press this in by hand right now because it's so cold. Look at that. So I've actually already got that started by hand. But what I'll do is I'll use my bearing bearing and seal seater kit, and we'll just hammer that in right here on the bench. And so what you want to do is, again, because we're pressing it in on the outer race, you want to put all the pressure on the outer race, not on the inner race. On the outer race, so you want to pick a press tool that goes over that outer race. This one's just a hair too small, so we'll go to the next one up, and that is good. This is even better, and we can at least get it most of the way in there. And you want to make sure that when you're done, it's right up against the seat here, so there's no gap here. That's what you want. See how there's a nice gap there right now? You don't want any gap there. So that's when you know you're done. Sometimes you can actually hear it when you're hammering it in. It'll suddenly just kind of get a duller thud, and you know you're good. But if you don't hear that, just like I like to just use a pick or whatever and just make sure it's sealed up. If I can't tell just visually looking at it, that's what I'll do. Now you could just hit that bearing straight on, like straight off with a hammer if you have a soft hammer or dead blow hammer stuff. You could do that, but I like to use these these nylon bearing tools. And same thing, just keep a constant check. Make sure you're going in nice and square. If you're not, adjust where it's gonna put the pressure, and try to square it up as you go. But definitely don't let it get too far off of being perfectly square. Getting tight going in, but we still got lots of space. There we go. I think I was just a wee bit crooked there. I think I'm high just a wee bit on this side. Just a wee bit. See if I can get a little more light on that. See how it's sitting. I think we gotta go a little more yet. I'm going to actually turn this around because I might be catching up on here with this size of my press bearing driver. That's what it is, bearing driver. So I'm just turning it around so that I'm using slightly smaller size. It's still a good size for that outer race, but slightly smaller than this side. All right, I think we're seated. Let's make sure that pick is clean. Looks like I'm going right up against the race. So I think we're seated. We haven't moved it any in a while. And a few hits. So I think we're good. Nicely seated. It looks good and square here. And it's turning nice and smooth. Cool. So that case half is done with the exception of the seals, but I'm not going to put the seals in just yet. Some of the seals on here, they don't actually bottom out, and Kawasaki actually has recommendations on how deep they should be seated, and they recommend that you put them on after the fact, so after the diff is actually fully put together, if I remember right in the manual. So I'm going to leave the seals out, and that also prevents me from potentially damaging them in the process. And I think we'll move on to the next case half here, case part, and get this last cold bearing in. If you'd noticed there, like how cold that bearing was, I was able to actually start it just by pressing it in with the palm of my hand. So if I had actually baked this case, then this bearing very well may have just dropped right into place. and then it would just tighten up as the case cooled and the bearing heated up. It would just naturally tighten right back up. So it does help. It made that bearing go in much easier. It made it easier for me to even get it started, which is usually the hardest part, getting them started square. So, you know, it still helps even if you don't bake the case. Okay, the other case bearing goes in this large hole here, and it goes in right down here. There's like a little casting flash or something there. That's interesting. It doesn't look like a crack. No, it's like a casting flash. Just right there. Just a little nub thing. Probably knock it off fairly easy, but whatever. Alright. This bearing actually does have a direction it goes in. If you can see, it is a little different on this side than this side. And so this is going to break my rule. Is it? I don't know. I need to check this out. I don't know which direction this bearing actually goes in. If it goes in that way or that way. I think it does go in this way, because there is not much of a mounting flange or a bearing flange, you know, where it bottoms out. There's not much there, so that makes me think that the skinnier part of the race, because it's like fat part of the race here, skinnier part of the race here, makes me think that skinnier part goes against there, and then my part number rule still applies as well. It's on the outside for readability. But before I go hammering that in there, I am going to check that out. I'm going to put this back in with the ice, keep it cool, although it's warming up really fast because it doesn't have a lot of, it's got a lot of surface area for not a lot of mass, so it's warming up quick. Throw it in with the ice here inside the bag, and all I gotta check, see which way that bearing goes in. So I'll be right back. Okay, I just went and watched back my videos there, and I confirmed what I thought, which is the thinner part of the race was up against the case. So we want the writing out so that once it's in you can still read it, and the thinner part goes in against the case. So that's nice and cold. See if we can hand start this one. No, does not want a hand start. But on the upside is we can use the press to put this one in. So I think that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take it out to the A-frame press and press this in. I'm just checking to see which one of my drivers is gonna work best. This one's pretty good, but I kind of wonder if this brown one, I guess I could tell you guys sizes here, because these do actually have sizes. They're color coded, and then they got multiple sizes per disc. So like this one here has actually got 3 different sizes. It's got this one here, which is 27 millimeters or 2.834 inches. And then it's got this one here, which is 65 millimeters or 2.559 inches. But it's actually got another collar here that is slightly larger, basically. And I'm thinking that is the side we want to use, maybe, because it actually fits in that bearing and really pushes on the race. Not quite, actually. It's not quite right. Wonder if the 27 mil fits good. Does not fit over top. So I think we're gonna go with the black one here. And just use the largest size, because there's nothing really that's going to get in our way. And we have all kinds of good contact space. So that is the 81 millimeter. So I'm going to move out to the press here, and we're actually going to press this bearing into place instead of hammering it in. Okay, so I've set these plates across right here. And then I've very carefully positioned everything so that the ram is going to contact the center of my bearing driver. And I'm just trying to make sure that that bearing is positioned correctly. And there's not a lot of room for me to play in here, and this is the most amount of space I can get with my press at the moment. So I'm just checking this bearing position. Oh, yeah, that is good. Okay, I like that. All right, we're going to put this back in. Just square on top of that bearing. And then we're going to start pressing here. Now I want the press to be pushing down right in the center. So I'm centering that bearing driver over top of the bearing, and then I'm centering the ram of the press on that bearing driver. Okay, we are on it. Now I'm just going to take it really easy and watch really closely how this is going in, because we definitely don't want to be cracking this case. Well, that's a fair bit of pressure. Can't quite tell how she's doing yet. Oh, looks like she's going in. There we go. Now I'm going real slow because I'm feeling for all of a sudden the resistance get really hard. Like right there. I'm going to stop there. And I'm actually going to pull it out and visually inspect, see where it's sitting. Because you really, like, it's a 6-ton press. Obviously that aluminum is not going to handle that kind of pressure. So you don't want to over pressurize that. And man, does that look nice. And it is bottomed out perfectly. Awesome. All right, let's I'm gonna show you guys here. Right here. Nice sunlight here. It's a beautiful day. See, you can actually see that is bottomed out really nicely all the way around. It looks good. And it looks really good on this side as well. I like it. Man, that was a lot nicer than hammering it in. And just takes a little bit of care. Make sure you don't overpress it, stuff like that, because again, you got to remember the materials you're working with. Awesome. So that one is good. Now let's go back in here. While I was oh, excuse me. While I was trying to figure out which way that bearing actually went in, and that looks good. I did happen to notice that for this case half, so the first one that holds the pinion, it does actually say to put the seal in. And I'm just going to move this back over here because we're done with that case half for now. It does say to put that seal in. And because it does have a lip here to bottom out on. So it says to put it in so it's flush. So I'm going to do that now. It says you can do it right now as you're doing the bearings. It's the other case that it actually has a specification. Now I don't know, because it does have a lip, like it does have a seating position right here for the seal, right? But it does say to have it, I think it was 4.5 to 5 millimeters from the lip of the case itself, which you can see where the original seal actually was sitting, right? So I'm guessing maybe they actually have that for just for so that you're not putting it flush and leaving a bunch of gap in here. So I think you would basically just bottom out the seal against this surface, and then you're good as well. And the check for the 4.5 to 5 mils is to just make sure that you're probably seated, because there's no way you'd ever know if you are or aren't. And that's kind of the same for making it flush with this case here as well, is so that you know that you're fully in and probably seated against the case seat. So you know what, I think I'm just going to drive both of those in anyways now. Then I'm done with that, and then I can get on to rebuilding this this pinion section. Actually, I'm going to leave this seal out until I'm done that, so just in case, because I got to put this back in the vise to do that, just in case I do happen to wreck that seal with the wood in the vise or something. I think I'm going to leave the seals out for now. We'll do them a little later, but we're not going to wait until the entire diff is put together. I guess we could do that too, is wait until the very end, put them in. It's really not going to make any difference, but I'm going to get on to doing the pinion side of this first so that we can just start getting this all put back together.